Okay, just setting up a couple things here to get ready. We'll start in a couple seconds, actually. So we'll start at 9 o'clock. Let me adjust things. Everything is out of place since I got back, so kind of readjusting to life after the conference. Turn those off. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for showing up. I got a chat going on if you have questions about what we're doing. My typical approach with these is just to kind of honestly explore the stuff. I don't really know exactly what the direction is that we'll be going, but yeah, I just wanted to explore useState today. So there's a bunch of hooks, but today my goal is to explore useState, kind of bump around the boundaries of it, give it its full due and not just kind of make assumptions about what its limitations are. So I'll be playing with that. I was kind of thinking through what my strategy for this is, and I want to just kind of explore each of the different types that you might be able to put in state. So I'll do those, and then I was thinking that kind of interleaved in those, I would work on the abstraction. So what it would look like just using useState directly, but then also abstracting that, what that would look like for each type. I think that's it. Hey Benjamin, how's it going? Thanks for being here. So yeah, so that's my goal. We'll look at the documentation. I figure I'll probably just start, just jump right in, see what I know so far, and then I'll kind of look at the documentation for anything that I missed. Yeah, so that's the first thing. That's first things first. So I guess what I'll do is I'll start with a number. I think that's the easiest one to start with. So we'll just get that going. I apologize. My fingers are not exactly warmed up yet. So let's see. So we're going to just put 1 in a span here. Let's see, style. Make this big. Font size. 32. Okay, cool. So we got a big number there. I'm going to change, actually, wait. We'll add a button. Type button. I'll say increment. Oh, those fingers. Rough. Okay, cool. Let's change this to a div. I know it's not semantic, but I just want them on separate lines. Okay, so we press increment. It doesn't do anything because we haven't hooked it up to anything. So we can then import useState for that. Then in our function component, we can say let count equal useState, and we give it an initial value. So in our case, actually, let's set it to 1 since that was what we have already. We'll use count there. So count is hooked up now. Change that to 2, changes the value. I need to remember not to save every time I do something, or else I'm going to get sent up to the top in Code Sandbox. So yeah, so 3. Okay, so let's change that to 0, so we'll get kind of like a honest to goodness click counter going on here. Okay, cool. So we got the count, but clicking this doesn't do anything. We need to set an on click handler here. Give it a function that calls what? Calls this function our update count function. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take count, the same value that we have here. We're just going to add 1 to it. Oh my goodness, these fingers. Now we need to peel out that update count function as that it lives in the second position of that array. So I know that this is new to a lot of people, so I'll kind of like cover that just briefly. I did that in a previous live stream. Anyway, this is all hooked up, so we can see that this works now. So this is great. let's see what we did. So we imported useState. So these are the parts. Imported useState. We peeled off these values from this array that useState returns. So we called useState with a default value of 0. And then we set variables for these values, which we'll talk about in a second. We use count to display the count, and we use update count inside of an anonymous function in response to clicks, and we just use count plus 1. So now in set state, previously you would have to kind of take, because it's asynchronous, you would have to write a function that takes the previous values, and then you would use that to like kind of infer the next values. This is significantly easier because all of that is abstracted away for you. And like this count, every time this gets re-rendered, is going to be the right count. So that's really nice. All of that goes away. Let's talk for a second about this syntax here. So the way this works, actually, maybe I'll do it outside of this. So the way this works is that you can assign, so you might be familiar with array literals. I hope you are if you're going through this. So array literals would look something like this. So we could define something like useState. Everything's gonna break if I do that. Underscore useState equals, and we would do an array, 0, and then some anonymous function that updates 0. Update count here. Value. Okay, so we'd have some code that does that. Then we can use destructuring assignment to pull off the values of this. So we know that useState, or this underscore useState, is an array. And so we can use destructuring assignment, this kind of inverted version of array literals, to peel those values out. So useState. So we say, we know that useState's an array with these values inside of it. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to say, we're going to take useState and we're going to destructure it into values that that we want. So this, and we can name these on the fly. That's the really nice thing about this array, is that we can call this count or value or whatever, and then our updater, right? So that's really nifty. Now imagine if this was an object, right? So some people said, why isn't this an object? So imagine that this was an object. You would have something like, it would look something like this coming back to you. Value, 0, updater, new value, and then it does something, right? So I'm not going to implement it. I just want to show you what it might look like. So then from here, we wouldn't be able to name them by themselves. We'd have to, if we used object destructuring, we'd have to take value and updater. Now that's fine if you're only using one piece of state, but if you had, as they showed, Michael and then Chan as two different pieces of state. Sorry, ignore everything that's going on over here. Now I can't assign these, right? So I would have to do something really irritating, like first name, and I would have to reassign those values. So first name update first name. Keep wanting to call it first name updater. So I have to do that in order to kind of avoid this naming collision. So I think that array destructuring is actually a really nice choice, despite the fact that it looks kind of uncommon at the moment, because it expects you to name those. Now, one thing that I am really curious about, I've been curious about this for a moment. I'm curious if there's anything else that gets passed to us. So I'm going to take that whole array and log it out. I'm going to give it some another state. So let's see, let stuff, actually I think we can just log out console.log use state of 0. Okay, cool. So it looks like all we have in here are the two elements. So we have the value and then this bound dispatch action function, which is what we expect. No problem. So nothing hidden in there. That's fine. That's great. Maybe there will be in the future. Who knows? Yes. Yeah, it is super cool, Benjamin, that you can rename those on the fly. It's really nice. It's really weird at first to see array destructuring because it's so uncommon, but I totally agree that it was the right choice for this. And I think tuples like that are a little bit more common in other languages. So yeah. Let's see. So we have that. Everything looks in place. So we have our counter, and I wanted to look and see what it might be like to extract this into a custom hook. Now, I don't think that's necessary at this point, but I just want to explore the boundaries of it. So I think that we can create a custom hook just by saying function use, and these are all use prefix. So when you create a custom hook, use is the kind of indication that it is intended to be used as a hook. So use state, what we're going to say is use click counter. That's what we're going to call this. We're going to take an initial value, or initial count. We'll set that to 0 using I can never remember the name for this, but it's like default parameters, I think. So if we get a value, it'll be whatever the value is set to. If we don't get a value, it's set to 0 by default. And then I think we're going to use this hook. So we'll just copy this out. See, so we're using this hook. We have count and update count, and now we're responsible to return the values that we want. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, well, let's do something else first. Let's just return them as they come back to us. Can I do that? Okay, count is not fine. So now we're going to use our custom hook, use click counter. Give it, see, actually we can use nothing now. Let equal count update count. Unexpected token. Oh, duh. Okay, let's see if this worked. Cool. Okay, so that worked. So we have extracted out this this custom hook. All we did was basically lift up what we were doing here. We added an initial value. Oh, shoot, I need to change this to initial count. Let's make sure that works by passing 10 in here. Cool, yeah, so that works. Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is just kind of explore. So one of the things that Dan showed was that you could change you could return values that you could then use to like spread out on forms and whatnot. I don't necessarily think that that's a particularly valuable thing to do here, because unless we have this button, I guess we could do it here. Let's see, how would that work? We would have to do something kind of silly. This would be like really actually, I'm not going to do it because it just doesn't make sense. We could do it something like we could have this be children and then this be on click, but that seems kind of silly at this point. Anyway, but it does make a lot of sense for those form inputs. So I'm gonna do one of those next. So I kind of consider this like this done at this point. We have our custom hook that we're using. We can pass in an initial value like we did before. This is how we handle taking that initial value. It's just function arguments, and we have a default parameter. we use useState as we would, and then just return those values. Perfect. There's nothing special. You don't have to return, like you don't have to destructure the array. So we could just call this, I don't know, let's just call it state. So I don't have, because I'm not using those values, I can just pass them along as I get them back, and then destructure them in place here. So that should still work. Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So that's the first part. Excellent. So that's with numbers and a component. Let's do some other things. Since we were talking about strings, let's do a form input. So something that's really nice is we can do, let's set up a form input just using useState directly, and then we'll extract it. So let's see. So we do like input type text value. Does that work? Right. And this should not be editable. Perfect. Cool. Clicking tab and stuff doesn't work. And then on chance. And then on change, let's say any change that we get, I'm going to, let's see, how does that work? Do you take like the event, and do, okay, so I'm gonna need some state here no matter what. So we're gonna have something like handle change. Okay, that's not defined yet. So let's use our state to define that. So we have, let's see, let value and update value equal use state of fantastic. So I'm gonna just do this one piece at a time. Value. So this should be chantastic now. Okay, cool. Doesn't do anything. So we pulled update value out. And we will do this. So on change. Now I'm gonna need to take a function because I don't control this yet. I can do it with a custom hook, but I don't control it yet. And so we'll say take E, and let's see, how does this work? Oh yeah, so we'll do update value of E, right? No. E, oh my gosh, such an idiot. Target value. Okay, cool. Now it should work. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay, so that works. So we just used, I mean, again, use set state. This time we're doing it with a string. So this is kind of the second part of our experiment, value and update value. Now, again, we can call this anything that we want. And so kind of like moving along this, kind of moving towards that like example that Dan showed with forms, we can do, was it on change? Oh my gosh. So we have update value on change. Now, so again, we can rename these whatever we want. So that proves that we can name it whatever we want. Now, unfortunately, we have to handle this. So we could pull it out into a function outside of all this, or we could define a function in here. All that's fine. But with these forms and these strings, we can do something like really cool, which is to just spread out this value and this on change. But we can't do that when we have to kind of do some special handling for that value that we're going to get back. So let's take this and extract it into a custom hook. So what would we call this? Use value, maybe? I don't know. Let's go for it. I don't have a better idea. So we will take an initial value, use default parameters to set that to, I don't know, empty string, I guess. Just so we can just so we can be sure to call functions like toString on it, because otherwise this would be, if we didn't pass in a value, it would be undefined. And if we tried to call things like toString on it, we would have some problems. So I'll just set it to an empty string, and then, you know, someone might throw in a number and then we solve those same problems, but at least I'm kind of covering my butt here a little bit. Again, we take this, move it up, use our custom hook. So we're gonna, right now I'm just gonna pass it. I'm just gonna do one change at a time, but we'll kind of like see the different things happen. So let's value and on change equal use value, turn okay, so I need to change this to initial value. Okay, cool. So the initial value should be empty string, so everything works as expected. Cool. Now for that kind of special trick that we can do. So on change, so let's see how we need to do this now. So if we want to handle all of this locally, we can define a new function. Actually, we can take that from here. So what are we going to call this? Update? Yeah. No, I'll call it handle change. I'm just figuring this out as we go along. So okay, so handle change, nice. You're probably screaming at me. Okay, change that to handle change. So right now we're returning value and handle change, which kind of is an abstraction over on change, which is going to pull out the event and pull the specific text out of the event. I think that should work. Yes. Okay, cool. Still works. Okay, awesome. So this is fine. We have basically brought this into our we've brought this like implementation detail of pulling event.target.value into this, but we can make it a little bit better, which is super cool. So right now we have value, value, and on change, on change. That duplication is kind of stinky. Luca. Yeah. I just want to return value and on change. I'm just doing it like kind of like piece by piece so we can see it all happen. Yeah. Okay, so we have this, and what I want to do is basically spread out these so that I don't have to. Now, right now, those exist in an array, and so I can't spread those props. I need an object to spread those props, right? So what we can do is we can change this. So let's start with what we want it to look like. Would be like this. So we'd say, let's see, I don't know what to call this, like hook values. I just call them values. Okay, now that's not going to work because I don't have that values assigned. So I'm going to get rid of this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to an object. See, value is going to be value, and on change is going to be handle change. So this just maps this. So basically on the way out, it's binding handle change to on change. So on the way out, when we use it, it's handle change. It's on change here, even though we have this handle change function here. Let's see if that worked. Oh my goodness, it works. Cool. That's awesome. So now we should be able to duplicate this form without like, so this is really handy, right? Because we can duplicate this form now. So let's call this first name. This will be Michael. We'll do last name, Chan. Nickname, Chantastic. Okay, so values is no longer there. So we'll make this first name. Perfect. We'll make this last name. Make this nickname. So cool. Oh, tab over. All these work independently. That is super neat. So I guess for the sake of review, we have, again, just starting with useState on all of these. Man, my nose is stuffed up, so I'm like breathing through my mouth all like crazy, like an idiot. So we have, you hear that? It's like super, just the winds have been kicking things up. It's just gross. So as I'm talking, I'm just like getting out of breath. So we have input, type text, no problem. We have, and then what we're doing is we're, okay, so anyway, back to the code. So what we're doing is we're using this custom use value hook that we've created. This is a custom hook that takes a default parameter. Now, we've set this default parameter. So I think things should, let's see, never mind. So we're using our use value, or we're creating a use value hook. It takes an initial value. We set the default parameter to empty string by default. So we can call methods like toString on it without concern. And then in here, we use a standard useState, passing it our initial value. We then pull off the value and on change. And from that array, we have a function called handle change, which we just use to abstract around needing to get this value. So we take the event and then we call the on change that was passed to us from useState with the new text that we want to call it with. Okay, no problem. And then what we do is we return an object with the value here, and we remap handle change to be called on change. And the reason we do that is because now we can spread those out here. And I'll show you kind of, I'll explode one out using destructuring assignment for nicknames, so you can kind of see what's happening. So we would have value, if you're not familiar with object destructuring. So we'd have value, and we'd have nickname. Oh, no. So we'd have value, which we would take as, no, we'll just take it as value. And then we would have on change. Sorry, brain fart. Now we were spreading those out, but now that we're kind of destructuring them here, we can't spread them out. So the way that looks literally is value, on change. Cool. So that still works. You can see that. And all we're doing with this syntax is spreading out what lives in these, which are these here. So this is the literal version of that. Okay, cool. So we did, let's see, how far are we? Oh, 28 minutes. I'm not moving very fast. So we've done strings, we've done numbers. Let's move to, let's do objects, I guess. Now, I don't necessarily think that you're going to use objects a lot here. It's really nice to have like these different values. Let's see, I'm trying to think of a case where you would use an object that you wouldn't use something like use reducer. In which case, I think I'm going to skip objects. Unless if you have any objections, just let me know and we'll cover it. Just know that you can use objects here if you want to. I think they're going to be overly complicated because you're going to have to kind of produce all of these updater functions by yourself. In which case, it'd be way better to just use useState. or use state with simpler values. So I'm going to skip that and we're going to go to lists. Lists are actually pretty cool. I haven't actually done this, but I have a bunch of ideas that might be interesting. So let's work with arrays. So let's see. Again, I don't know where I'm going, so we'll kind of figure this out as we go along. Let's keep. So let list. I'll just use the generic term. I don't know. These might be to-dos or something. Change that to an unordered list. What's this going to be? This is going to be list.map. We're going to take each item and return a list item with. Whoop. Okay. Ooh. Okay, cool. So that puts that all in one line for us. So we have a list item. We're mapping over that. Sorry, an unordered list. We're mapping over the list and just returning a new array with list items for each item. So if we add 1, 2, 3, we can see that that is all hooked up to work. So if we had an input, oh, I just deleted my fragment. What was I thinking? Okay, so if we had an input, let's say we wanted to add something to the end of this list. So input type text. On change. Wait, on change? No. Do we have to add a form? Oh my gosh, you're about to see how little I use forms in React. At least forms like this. On submit, I think is what we need to do. It's been so long since I've done this. I work mostly in making kind of front-end tools and like design systems. So I'm not actually submitting forms a lot. Let's see. So console.log. Let's see if that works. I don't think it will yet. I think we need to keep that on state. Ooh, you pissed. Okay, I'm gonna add stuff just one off, or you can kind of tell me how to do it, but it's complaining about that. So I'm gonna add a key here, which will just be the item. I know right now that they're unique. They might not be in an app, so IDEs are always best. That log gets cleared out too fast for me. Oh, let's see. On submit. I probably need to prevent default or something. Oh, I don't need this form. I'm so sorry right now. So sorry. we're just going to do something really dumb. So on click, we're going to, I don't even care about what the event says. I'm just going to add 4. So we're going to call, so the question for me would be, how would I add 4 to this list typically? Oh, I misspelled default. Thank you. I'm just gonna move on and make it literal, but yes, thank you. I tend to do that. I don't know why. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to update list, and then we would see, how would that work? So we would take our previous list, we'd call concat on it, and add 4. So we basically, right now we just have a button that adds 4. So I'm actually going to put that, add 4. Reference update is not update list. Sorry. Cool, perfect. So this is how that would work. So now we have our updater and we can do anything that we know how to do. Unfortunately, sometimes some of these methods can be kind of like complicated. So like if we, let's see, so how would we do this? So we could do all kinds of things. So we could return, so instead of doing this method, we could just return a new array with all of the items spread out over it and 4. That still works. Now, if we wanted to prepend something to the array, we could do that like this. Just put it at the beginning, right? All right, let's change this to, so now 4 goes at the beginning of the list. So what we could do is that obviously this is not too difficult. It does get kind of tricky. Let's see. So what I want to do is, let's say we wanted to do like, let's see, I can't see my, there we go. So let's find out the code for how to do this. Is something that I literally have to look up almost every time that I do that. I'm not ashamed to admit that. But let's see. I think it's also on like the Redux instructions. If anyone wants to link, oh, here it is. Okay, cool. So if we wanted to insert something. Now I'm going to be just doing kind of like a bunch of the literal stuff. Just doing it, handling it literally. If you want to make it more dynamic, that's up to you. Anyway, so this is something that I want to kind of, if I don't want to have to look that up every time and like risk creating an error when I do it, it'd be nice if I could abstract this. And I think that hooks could give me a way to do that. So let's start by just pulling this list out as a hook. We'll call this useList. And we will take an array as the initial list because we're going to be calling a bunch of methods on it. We want to make sure that we have an array. Let's see. So we're going to, again, just move this up here. I think that we will want to split these out because we're going to be having, we'll have places where we're going to be calling methods on list. So we might as well just kind of continue having that split out, but we'll return list and update list. So we'll pass those through so that it's effectively an invisible thing to anyone using our API. Oh, Sid retracted a message. Is it because I didn't? I said I wasn't going to do something. Okay, so now we need to use our abstraction here, our custom hook. So we'll say let list update list equals use list, and we're going to, let's see, take this here, delete that, change that to initial list, and then pass in our list. Perfect. So that worked as expected. So everything is working fine. I can add 4 again. It adds it to the front of the list. Again, I have control. Let's see, Sid. Oh, whoa, you're talking to me. Oh, okay, good to see you, Sid. Always love seeing you here. Thanks. Oh, he's saying that I should import demo styles. You don't like the empty, the no styled HTML? I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So we have use list. So we have, so we've just created this abstraction around this list. Right now, it's not actually getting us anything that we wouldn't be able to get just by using list directly, but it still works. We can add 4. Ooh, or maybe not. What'd I do? Oh, I'm just spreading out the list. Spam. Okay, so we can add 4 and we can keep adding 4 if we want. So that is fine. Now, what would happen if we were to, basically we could add some methods here called like append or prepend or insert. So let's kind of start thinking about that. So first of all, in order to do that, I don't want an array that's going to just keep growing in arguments. That'd be really ridiculous because in order to get to prepend, if it was after append, you'd have to destructure all of the values off before it. So that's ridiculous. I want you to just be able to pull off the things that you need. So what are we gonna do? First, we're gonna change this to an object. So we'll change list. We'll just kind of use that with a standard punning. Actually, wait. How should we do that? Yeah, let's keep it list for now. So you'll have to destructure off list. You'll have to know that API, but whatever. Might be best actually to change these to value. Who knows? So we have value and update value. So we're gonna have to change these. Value. And if I want, I can kind of rename these in place to, so I don't have to update my code down here everywhere. Value. Okay, still work? Yeah, still works. Now, what I want to do is effectively, I want to add an API that allows me to append. So let's see how that would work. So instead of update list, I'm going to call append. Now that means that this is going to go away and I'm going to append just 4. We're going to take a value and how does that work? We're going to call update value with the, okay. So, let's see, I'm going to, so I kind of shot myself in the foot by calling this value. So, I'm going to change it back. I'm just learning. Again, I did not really think this through beforehand. So append is going to be value. So you're getting the fresh thoughts from me. Cannot read map. Oh, duh. Append. Okay, so I just need to add that into my object. Cool. So now I have a function that So I've created this API that like does this thing where it takes a value and adds it to the end of the list, which is great because now I don't have to do that work, which is awesome. So let's try adding a prepend. So let's add another button. So we'll say this appends for, this will prepend 0. Let's see, 45. We're at about 45 minutes, so I'm gonna finish doing this. But if you have any questions, just queue them up in the chat, and I'll try to get to those before we hit like about an hour. Because I know the Apple keynote's today, and so if you're an Apple fan, you're gonna be leaving this anyway. I'll be leaving this because I want those sweet new iPads and a new Mac Mini. So let's see if this worked. So we have append and prepend. So I'm going to call the prepend function, which I don't have yet, but I'm going to destructure that off of my custom hook, and I need to add it to my custom hook, and I need to add the implementation prepend. It's going to put the value at the front of the list before spreading it, before spreading the rest of the list out. So we can append for, we can prepend 0. Oops. Okay, append for, prepend 0. Perfect. So we're seeing that all starts to take shape, which is really nice. Ooh, so pissed. Why are you so pissed? Okay, cool. So that is working. Now let's get back to kind of before we end. I want to get back to this cluster, which is the insert, that thing that I'm always having to look up every time I write this insert method. So what we're gonna do is, again, you can make this more dynamic just for the sake of demonstration. These are very literal buttons. But honestly, once we have this set up, you can kind of build your form however you want. So we're going to insert actually no, we're going to do 3.1. An homage to my friend here. 3.1. Okay, so we're going to insert 3.1. And we're going to insert, okay, so this is 0. This is 2. This is 3. Okay, let's see. So let's get this implementation here. So I just copied this right off of Stack Overflow. So insert is going to take an array. We don't need to take an array. We're going to take an index and a new item. So the array is going to be list. So we're just changing that to be the list that we get from setState. The index is what we're getting here. Perfect. And the new item gets sandwiched in the middle. So if you're not familiar with what this insert function does, is it takes all of the items on the array, it creates a new array. It spreads off all of the items of the array up to the index, inserts the item that you want to insert, and then it spreads everything after the index. Okay, so we have that. Now we just need to add that to our object here at the end. Insert 0. Now we need to give it an index. So if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be 0, 1, 2. So we're going to insert it at 2. Maybe? I don't know. So we're going to prepend 0, append 4, and insert. Oh! Insert. So insert is not defined. I didn't take it off. I didn't destructure it off. So prepend 0, append 4, insert 3.1. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So insert 3.1, Okay, so let's see. I did something wrong here, obviously. Oh, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. I hope that they're helpful for you. I'm just like honestly just kind of exploring to try to see, like, learn some of these things myself and whatnot. So I thank you for sticking around. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to cover whatever or bump around the edges of whatever. So yeah, so we have, let's see. So we're spreading out the, okay, so we're taking the list, index. I'm passing. Oh, I have the arguments flipped. Yes, thank you. So let's see. So is that, let's see, what would be the right, let's just flip them to be this order. I'm not sure what I would want the API to be if I were actually making this as a custom hook. So let's start with this 3.1. No. Params are in the wrong order. Okay, yep. So this is 2 now. So 0 to 2. Let's make this literal for a second and see if there's something else that I'm getting wrong. List, new item. Okay. So we're gonna do something else. We're going to debug this. Let insert so let's just make sure that this gets called. Okay, it does get called. Oh, I'm seeing chats. Oh, duh. Yes. Thank you, Adam. Yes. And Luca, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not updating state. Thank you. That was about to get real embarrassing for me. Okay, so I need to update state with a new array. So update value with a new array. So, okay, cool. And I changed these to be literal numbers. So this is going to be index again, index. So that should insert. Looks like I got that number wrong. It should be 3. Okay, so we can insert 3.1, append to the end, prepend 0. Awesome, cool, we did it. We did it together. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, mob programming. So let's see. So I think that's it. So the big thing that I wanted to show you with lists is that we can actually abstract a lot of these helpers when we're working with arrays, which can actually be really handy. Because again, I forget this implementation all the time, mostly just because I always forget like how to interpret where the index is cutting things, like if it's beginning or end. I should just like commit it to memory. But the point is that if I had a use list, I wouldn't necessarily have to commit it to memory. I could just use insert. Now, whether or not you think abstractions are good or bad is totally up to you. This is just a demonstration of what you can do with useState. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it for me today. I just wanted to kind of go through useState, just useState, play with the different types, and yeah, kind of see what the boundaries are. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if you're interested in more videos like this, I'm going to be doing the same time every day for the rest of this week. I'll probably be doing useEffect tomorrow. That, or I might start with something easier because useEffect is kind of the workhorse. But yeah, I'm going to be doing useEffect tomorrow, maybe for a couple days, and then yeah, whatever. So if you want, you can subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll be kind of tweeting those out as they go live. Or you can just remember that it's going to be tomorrow and the rest of the week at exactly this time. So yeah, thanks so much. Let's see. Luca was saying, I'm kind of worried that every time the set state is called, the entire code and custom hooks gets called. Yeah, we can look. Yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is, but yeah, in this case, it's definitely all of this stuff is getting called. because the component is so small. I imagine that it's probably controlled by kind of the component tree, depending on if that part of the tree gets updated or not. I imagine that it would probably be isolated to this section if this was just like an isolated part of my app, but who knows? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, always got to be careful of the code we put together. So we'll be exploring like useMemo and all those other APIs kind of later on, but I wanted to get some of those like basic ones like useState and useEffect, since those are really the workhorse ones, to get a solid understanding of those, where the boundaries are and whatnot. So yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. We'll do some more tomorrow. See ya.